Okay, um, my presentation is about desalination uh, in the process and what it goes through and how it's done. Okay, desalination is basically the process of taking salt out of water. Here's a few quick facts for you. 71% of the planet is covered in water. Over 48 billion gallons of water for every person on Earth. 1 in 3 people do not have access to safe drinking water, unfortunately, and 96.5% of the water is undrinkable because of the ocean and the salt that is in it. The thesis I have is global superpowers should start focusing on desalination in order to prepare for the future. So, like I said, desalination is the process of removing salt from water, but also it can remove waste, it can remove different toxins from the water to make it fresh and drinkable for people. Um, as you notice, if you mix salt in water, it dissolves in it and it makes a different compound. It's not just salt in water anymore, it is a different solution. Uh, Water breaks down the salt into particles and again creates a new solution. And that's partly why it makes it so difficult to separate the two, because you have a brand new product and it takes a lot of energy to separate the two. There are two types of desalination, thermal desalination and reverse osmosis desalination. Thermal desalination is very simple. It's just you would take your product, it contains salt water, and you would add heat, and that water evaporates, causing a gas. And then when that gas condensates again, it comes down and creates fresh water with no salt water remaining. Reverse osmosis is the main purpose of this paper. This is the new type of technology that we're running into. It's basically pushing water through a series of um, mediums to force it to separate. Over the years, desalination has been created in the beginning by just Greek sailors thousands of years ago. They would be stuck on ships for a very long time, and the only real way besides gathering rainwater would be to use thermal desalination and separate the water that way. Alexander Zarchin discovered the basic idea for thermal desalination. He discovered it when you could take icicles and melt them and separate water like that. In 1949, the University of California produced the original idea for reverse osmosis for desalination, but it was continued to work through in the 1960s as UCLA developed even more improved ideas in reverse osmosis desalination. Reverse osmosis desalination, it does not use heat. It is pressurizing water through a membrane, and it forces water to separate from the salt. The needs and basic ideas for desalination to make it possible, you need to know where the water is coming from, if you have enough water in the area, and how much does it cost. Those are the three things that you need to know before you even think of developing a desalination plant. Globally, desalination is not incredibly popular in North America. It is mostly popular in the Middle East and North Africa. This is because they have lots of fossil fuels required for desalination, and it is also a very popular in demand over there because of the water scarcity in the poor countries over there. Globally, Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates produce 1/4 of desalinated water. So they are definitely the global leaders in that section of the country, or that section of the planet, rather. Um, Overall, there are definitely a few concerns with desalination. Energy required is a big one. Because of how much energy is required in reverse osmosis desalination, a lot of countries stay away from it. The amount of money it costs is definitely cost prohibitive in North America. Not many areas can afford to have desalination. And definitely there's other environmental impacts involved with desalination. In San Diego, the Cloud Lewis Carlsbad desalination plant is the biggest in the Western Hemisphere. It is used by San Diego County. It's mainly there because of San Diego's arid environment. It's really dry, similar to North Africa. Because of the arid environment, definitely water is very scarce in California. Overall, it produces 50 million gallons of water a day since 2015. 2015 is when it was built and when it started operation. It spends twice as much for seawater than imported water. And that's a very big concern with desalination. Right now, currently, it's cheaper to just purchase imported water than to make desalinated water. The environmental concerns. So when you desalinate water, salt from the water, it operates at a 50-50% efficiency rate. So that means that you'll have, if you have 2 gallons of water, you'll end up with 1 gallon of clean drinkable water, but you will also end up with another gallon of water of very concentrated saline, hypersaline brine, which is a super salty byproduct of the process. Globally, desalination produces 37 billion gallons a day of brine water in particular. So in a way, you are making more brine water than you are making desalinated water through this process. And the common practice is to just empty it back into the ocean, and it sinks to the bottom of the floor because of how concentrated it is. A lot of people look at it as a concern for the environment, a concern for wildlife in the ocean, like the reefs and the life at the bottom of the ocean. But California has definitely assured protection. And if California is assuring it, the most regulated state out of all of them, you can definitely trust them knowing what they're doing. Studies have shown that extra brine in the ocean does not hurt sea life, contrary to popular belief. And again, brine is produced more than desalinated water. Reasons to rely on desalination. It is a proven process. It's stable and reliable if you have the means to do it, meaning if you have the resources, if you have the budget. San Diego County is obviously a lot wealthier than many of the counties in different parts of the U.S. So they will have the means to do that. It is a proven process. So if you use desalination, you're guaranteed to have fresh water. It's a guaranteed method. And another concern is for using desalination is climate change. Climate change is definitely an issue. It changes yearly, so it's definitely worth looking into desalination for the long-term future. Is it the solution? I mean, it's definitely a long-term solution. Um, Possibly not right now, because there's no sense in building a bunch of desalination plants right now when importing water is a vastly cheaper option than to work on desalination and having its value. The desalinated water is of higher value than imported water, and it's more expensive. There's definitely potential in desalination. Um, what desalination does do, though, it does narrow the gap between water scarcity and demand, especially in areas of need like North Africa and Saudi Arabia and the Middle East in general. Um, Investing in other industries will be necessary. What I mean by that is you will need to have your community adjust. You will need to value water more because, of course, desalinated water is harder to get rather than imported water. Um, so definitely communities will need to adjust how much water they use, um, especially in California. In conclusion, desalination is a solution that should be invested in presently to prevent water scarcity in the long term. They need to focus on making it and investing it in the long term in order to prevent a water scarcity in the future. Uh, Down the road, there are definitely going to be water scarcities because of how small amount fresh water is on the earth. And if you do focus on desalination, that opens up the window to that 96.5% of seawater that can be changed into fresh water for everyone. Thank you.